Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is...
The Wellness Journey podcast series presents Spice of Life, a seasoned woman's guide to renewing her essence. On this journey, you will find all of the flavors you thought you'd lost. It's there. You have it, especially while in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. On this show, experts in the field of wellness will give you the chance to be restored, re-energized, and renewed so that you can be successful along your wellness journey. Hi, and welcome to the Wellness Journey podcast series. And can you believe it? We are starting a new year. And no matter when you might be listening to this broadcast, one thing I can tell you for sure is that every year, whether it's 2019, which is when we're doing this now, or 2020 or 2021, we have this one tradition where we want to start the new year with new ideas and new ways of being. You know, those New Year resolutions, our goals and objectives, and we start out like really excited. And somewhere along the way, we kind of lose our mojo a little bit, kind of fall off the wagon. And that brings me to the reason why I wanted to do this broadcast. I wanted to talk to some life coaches to figure out what it is that they do to help you stay on track. I have found in the last 10 years that I've been working with women, and I'm not really a life coach, I'm a holistic living and wellness coach, but I've done my share of life coaching. And I have found that some of the most critical times of a person's metamorphosis comes when they have that support from the life coach to kind of push them over to the other side of their growth. And since this new year is all about wanting to grow and accomplish our goals and objectives, I thought it would be wonderful that we get a chance to talk to some real life coaches to find out why they're passionate about what they're doing and what it is that they bring to the table in terms of what a life coach is all about. We have with us today Adrian Chofor, and she is a life coach. She has some wonderful programs. And I just have to tell you a little bit about her. She is an international best-selling author, international public speaker, and a personal transformational strategist. And she loves helping women all over the globe find their voice and step into their power and live their purpose. Adrian, thank you so much for being on the Wellness Journey podcast series. It's great to have you today.
Thank you. I love being here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about life coaches, and I know that you are one. Tell us a little bit about your story and what motivated you to fall into this sector when it comes to helping women.
Well, like a lot of women, I had some things going on in my life that were holding me back. I thought I was just going to deal with it on my own. I had a background that dealt with childhood abuse and with teenage homelessness and low self-worth. And I was bounced back from that. I was pretty resilient. I was able to have a good career, but I still felt stuck. I felt like I wasn't where I really wanted to be. And I got help for that. I got my own life coach, and I got help to become more self-confident and to tap into my greatness. And that became my motto in life. We all have greatness within us. We just have to tap into it. And then everything that was once impossible, you realize is possible because you are possible. You can make it happen. But I'm going to share a little secret with you real quick.
Okay.
I had traveled all over the world. Matter of fact, I even lived overseas. I lived abroad for some time. Mm-hmm. I came back to the United States in 2009 during a deep recession, economic recession. And I dealt with toxic relationships, looking for work. It was a tough period in my life. And that mojo was gone.
Yeah.
And I plummeted into depression. I packed on a lot of weight, over 100 pounds. It came on so quick. Yes, it came on so suddenly. In 1 year, matter of fact, I had put on 60 pounds.
Wow.
So that's like 2 new wardrobes. I was the wreck, but I got the help that I needed. And in return, I wanted to help other women to get who also feel stuck, those who want to know how they can make changes, and also those who felt like they lost their mojo and they want to get it back.
You know, that's an amazing story. And I'm sure there's some people out there that can resonate with them, because one of the things that happens when we are going through difficult times, especially as we get older, you know, the hormones kick in, definitely, the metabolism slows down, and we get into the emotional eating that we might have done, you know, in our 20s, stressed out, or in our teens over a final or college boyfriend. So we gravitate to the things we've always eaten, but our bodies have changed. How our bodies encode the world, how our bodies react to stress has changed, our metabolism has changed, and of course, we emotionally have changed as well. And that can be really a bad combination. So given that, what happens is like what happened to you. You gain all this weight, and you wonder, where the heck did it come from? So what did you do? You mentioned that you got some help. What kind of help did you get?
Well, I went to a coach, and my coach helped me to see what was going on, not just in my head, but with my heart, and what I was projecting. I was also attracting. And I didn't realize, I thought I was trying to be positive, but I didn't realize I would always slide back into a sarcasm, and that led to negativity. But I used to sign it off as my New York jaded side and just kind of play it off. But really, it was just welcoming negativity, and that was affecting the vibes I was giving off, and that's what I was attracting. And so when I got help with that, I had my aha moment, like, oh, wait a minute. It wasn't just hokey talk. No, this is true. And I got to see there was truth in that. What we feed our bodies affects our bodies, our physical bodies. But what we feed our mind affects our thinking. And what we say can manifest itself. Its words are powerful. So I had to learn that. And once that aha moment, it clicked, the weight started coming off. I started working out. I took better care about what I put in my mouth, what I thought about, what I speak about. And those changes helped significantly. And that's why, in turn, I want to help other women and empower other women that you are in control. Don't give up your power. Step into your power and own it. I had given my power away, not even realizing I had done that. And I always said, well, that's just the way it is. But that wasn't the way it was. Well, that's not the way it should be.
Right. And, you know, that's interesting, because I think a lot of us, as we age in particular, because, you know, this show is all about learning how to be well in your mind, body, and spirit as you age. And I think sometimes we fall into that thing, well, that's just the way it is. And I happen to be African-American, you're African-American, and I have heard us African-American women, for instance, say, well, that's just the way it is. I'm just big-boned, and it counts. I know some people may be upset with me, but people who have listened to me for years knows that just really irritates me, because even though you're genetically, let's say, predispositioned to have diabetes, or to have failing kidneys, or to be obese, or some of the other chronic diseases that might be out there, you might be predispositioned to do so. But there are things you can do if you educate yourself and make some lifestyle changes so that you don't have to go down that road. But sometimes you need some help. So you go to the doctor who, you know, prescribes medication or puts you on a diet or whatever it is that, you know, he does to help you. The same thing with a coach. You go to a coach. They help you to maneuver some of those things and also help you with the motivational piece. Give me, you know, some reasons why you think it would be good for women, let's say, who think it's just, they're just getting old and there's nothing you can do with it. Like women over 50, why should they have a coach?
I think women over 50, at any age, we all can, there's always room for improvement, right? And there's always something that we want to do. I have to tell you, there's so many people I have met who in their 40s, 50s, even their 60s, that have not lived a fulfilled life, and they just shrug it off that that's just the way it is.
Right.
But as long as we have the gift of another breath, another day of life, that means we can make a change and we can make an impact. And so if you need help in feeling empowered to do that, then a coach could help you with that. A coach is there to be your Gayle King to Oprah Winfrey. We are your sister girl. We are confidant. We're your cheerleader. But one very important thing all coaches are We are about accountability.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to a counselor and you can talk to a counselor for years about the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changes. And that will be okay. With a coach, it's about results.
Yes.
If you want it, let me help you get it. Let's set up some goals and let's make it happen. And I'm here with you every step of the way. It's like the three-legged race. You're the one taking the lead, but I have to follow. I'm not going to be dead weight and drag you.
Right, exactly.
But you have a destination you want to get to. I'm going to be there sitting and saying, we got this. Okay, maybe we could change our stride a little bit, or maybe we can have to watch that rock or think. But this really is your journey, and your life is the impact that you can make with your life to affect so many people is something that we should not take for granted. And so the work that I do and others like me, it is life-changing. It's like the caterpillar and the butterfly.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about your programs. What kind of programs do you have, and what do they do? How do they help?
So one of the programs that I'm going to be launching December 1st is a 3-month program. And the first month, the first week or so, we really delve into vision.
Okay.
You ask people, what do they want? Let me tell you, women, you ask a woman what she wants, and she'll go around and around, around and around. No, what do you want? If they say, I want to get this job, do you really want it? Well, I think I could get it. Or, yeah, I'm going to try. Or, do you want it? Yes or no, do you want it? And if you really want something, let's now talk about what that looks like for you. And when you get people to speak about and write about what they want, it becomes more real. So when they have a clarified vision, when it's crystal clear, when they feel it's so real they could step into it, then half of the work is already done. And then working on those steps to get them closer to achieving that vision, whether it's retiring early, losing weight, having a better frame of mind, having more energy, more sex drive, whatever it is, even financial freedom, having an abundant mindset. Because some people think, well, I'm always going to be broke. We always broke in this family. No, not always and never are words that you have to remove. And let's talk about education. Educating oneself about the things that they want.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because it's kind of like that same exercise when you ask, someone to stand in front of the mirror and be able to come up with reasons why they love themselves or what they see that they like about themselves. It is so difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Very much the same way as it is difficult for women to really talk about what it is that they want. When you take a look at what's going on with the modern day woman over 40, what do you think some of their biggest challenges are, and how do you help them deal with some of those challenges?
Well, we live in a youth-obsessed world, and a lot of women don't like to embrace their beauty with their age. And they like to look at what the other young girls are doing or what the younger generation is doing, because there's a push towards the millennials. And we understand that. But we have to go back to centuries ago where our elders got the respect that they deserved. And I want the women today, yes, we're modern day women, but there's so much that we have to offer that this generation, they don't know about. This, with the digital age, that transformation that took place with the digital age, there's something lost. Those who lived before this, who know what it's like to be able to go knock on a neighbor's door or walk in their house, and if there was a screen door, and walk in and be able to have a conversation, be able to be social, be able to talk to one another, even etiquette and manners. We need, and we know our mothers, our grandmothers, they're the foundation of the community. Your voice is more important, more than ever.
That's true.
Do not allow anybody to silence it.
That's true. And, it's interesting because I hear, really a lot of the hating coming from the baby boomers when it's talking about the millennials and what they're not doing. But when you sit down and talk with a millennial, I know I've got 4 of them, actually a little bit older than millennials because they're now all in their 30s, but one, they are hungry. They say their friends are hungry to have those kinds of conversations with their mothers, with their colleagues who are older than they, and they know they don't know it all, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to survive a world that's like this. And one thing I've learned when it comes to helping people in general, but in particular, working with other women and, helping guide them, that not only is it helping them, it helps you. It's symbiotic.
Yeah.
There's an exchange that goes on with women when they're communicating that's healthy, that doesn't happen from a hormonal perspective, doesn't happen any other time. These hormones are not exchanged any other time except when you are talking with other women, believe it or not, which is one reason, if for no other reason, to have a life coach, to make sure that those hormones get going, believe it or not.
Right.
And our feel-good hormones, like when you have a chance to sit down with your girlfriends, and you're talking, and the next day, time to go, sleep over, whatever, time to go, you really don't want to go. One of the reasons why you don't want to leave is that feeling that you have when you're with them that you really don't get any other time. And that is one reason why I think it's so important. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Aspire program. I know you have one starting in December. And I'm not sure when somebody might listen to this. They might listen to it in 2019, 2020. But let's talk a little bit about where they can go to find out more about your programs, because I'm sure you have an evergreen or a URL. So what's your URL and how else can they find you on social media?
Sure. Well, they can find me at www.Adrienne Jefferson Chofor. That's Adrian Jefferson. Chofor is CHOFOR.com. And also I'm on Facebook. I can be found under Aspire with Adrienne, and on Twitter, Aspire Adrienne, and Instagram as well, Aspire with Adrienne. So I can be reached also on YouTube, Aspire with Adrienne. So I can be reached on different social media platforms. But can I just go back to one thing that you said?
Yes.
I want to talk about support, because that was one of the reasons why I had put on so much weight, because I didn't have a strong support group. I didn't have my girlfriends around. They were on the East Coast, and I was living in the Midwest, Colorado, the West at the time, when I had gone through so much with a very difficult pregnancy and then putting on weight and a toxic relationship. And so that made such a difference. And as a coach, I help women to see the importance of finding your tribe and finding women who are going to help empower you and support you and uplift you. And I just brings to mind the sequoia and how do these mighty trees grow in the mountains, because their roots can't go deep because of the rocky soil. And the reason the sequoias are able to withstand the wind, the high pressure winds and the snow packs in the mountains and all that goes with it, is because their roots, although they can't go deep, they might be a little bit more shallow. You'll never find a sequoia standing up by itself. If it does, it will fall. They grow in groves because their roots underneath hold together, keeps each other together upright, and they were able to withstand storms because of being grouped and linked together. So community is very important.
And they're able to care for each other. And I know that you have written that one of the things that was really important in terms of your growth and development was holding self-care in high esteem.
Very important.
What does that mean? What does that mean to you? And why is this important?
We want to do everything. The modern woman is supposed to do it all, right? But that takes its toll. And we can have the power of a lioness. But like the saying goes, a live mouse is better than a dead lion. You have to take care of yourself. You cannot work yourself into the ground. Your body is your best, your greatest asset. All the material things can go, but your health you have to take care of. And you can't take care of someone else if you can't take care of yourself.
Yes.
Self-care is critical as we age. We cannot do as much as we used to. It's okay to say no.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. As a coach, I actually have to teach women how to say no.
Yes.
There are many women who don't know how to say no. They just get things thrown at them and they feel they have to take it because I do this, I do that. They expect me. So make time for yourself. It is as critical as breathing or eating.
Mm-hmm.
As we age, it's very important that we see the importance of taking time, whether it's time for meditation or just time to read a book or time to get away, whatever it is that's going to help you to recharge and re-energize. Take that time.
Very important. And you're right, Bev. I think many of us suffer from what I don't know if Oprah Winfrey coined this phrase or not, but it's the first time I heard it, was the need to please disease. We just have to please everybody. And of course, the only person, the most important one, who's not getting pleased is ourselves. I could talk all day about that. That's how I ended up with an anxiety disorder with 4 kids and a big corporate job and all the trappings of what is considered to be success.
Right.
Inside, I wasn't happy because I was totally stressed out and had developed an anxiety disorder. So it really is helpful and so important and life affirming when you are able to start to say no and put yourself on the front burner instead of the back burner. I know that I put myself on the back burner so much all the time that by the time I went back to look for me, I couldn't find me. I really couldn't.
It happened.
Yeah, it took an event for me to begin to heal and come back, and here I am 10 years later doing what I really like. And I wanted to say again, and look, some of the listeners know my story. I've been on for 10 years, but for those who are new and don't, I left corporate America at the age of 51 and I had a great 6-figure job and all the trappings of success. But I had an event, I had an epiphany and an event which caused me to take some time off and to do some introspection. And when I figured out, when it was time for me to go back, I was gone for a year and it was time for me to return. I didn't. It was from there that Praiseworks and the Wellness Woman brand and everything else was born. And it started with the idea that I needed to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. I needed to figure out what was going to make me happy and make me feel fulfilled. And I knew that it had to start with me. It wasn't my husband, it wasn't my kids, and it wasn't the job, it wasn't my friends, it was me. I was responsible for my happiness. And so I had to break free of a lot of stuff and start from scratch and build on the way up. I have to say, it's been 10 years. But it's been the best 10 years ever of my life. And, I just recently replaced, my income after all these years. But, it's interesting. All that money that I was making and, all the stuff that I was doing, when I was building my business and really getting to know me, it really didn't matter that much. And I'm proud to say I didn't lose my house, didn't lose a car, didn't lose any of those things. I was able to maintain and add because I was operating in my gifting. And let me tell you, all you women out there, when you are operating within your gifting, when you're operating within your passion, whatever that is, it makes such a huge difference. And the things you thought were so important that you couldn't do without, you realize that you really can't do without the ability to operate with your gifting. And in order to do that, if that means you have to let go of a couple other things, that's how I began to wear my hair natural because I couldn't go to the hairdresser anymore 10 years ago. And it's so funny. Now I could go. And I go to visit her. Yeah, I go to visit for conditioners and things like that. But I don't go like I could now that I can afford to because I found something else that works for me, and everybody's different. Whatever your passion is, I really feel strongly that a life coach, such as Adrian, can make a big difference in terms of helping you discover what that is. And then once you discover it, how to go about achieving it and getting in such a way where it's life affirming. So, for all of you, again, we're going to have on our show page, and if you're listening on iHeartRadio or one of the other audio stations, it's Adrian Jefferson Chofor. That's Adrian Jefferson, Jefferson, Chofor, CHOFOR, all one word.com. And you can also reach her on Facebook.com, Aspire with Adrienne, and follow her on Twitter. Aspire Adrian, and also on Instagram, Aspire with Adrian. Adrian, thank you so much for being on the Wellness Journey podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So wonderful to have you. Thank you for all your wisdom, and thank you for all of the women that you are helping now and will be helping well into the future.
May 2019 be a breakthrough year for all of you.
Hey, hey, hey! I'm voting for that so much. And thank you to all of you for joining us. It's been wonderful just getting a chance to share with all of you. And remember that along the journey, our wellness journey, we will run into some valleys, some hills, some rocks, some mountains that we have to climb. That's why you got to listen to the show to get some great tips, tools, and techniques from all these wonderful practitioners who are passionate about wellness for your mind, body, and spirit. Anita Cross is an author, a speaker, and a life coach, and on a mission to empower women to recognize their worth and love themselves. She knows firsthand the struggles that women face with gender discrimination, societal pressures, and domestic violence. She has 2 self-help books, Meantime Love, A Woman's Journey from Self-Loathing to Self-Love, and her second book, Meantime Love. So I got self-love, now what? So glad to have her here. Anita, welcome to the Wellness Journey podcast series. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
And I'm glad I saw your booth. Actually, this is the first time I've met Anita. I was at a conference in Sacramento, California, and I know this goes all over the world, but that's where I was. And I saw her book. I bought her book. And but she wasn't there, but I thought, gee, I'd love for her to share some of her messages and some of her wisdoms with all of you. So Anita, tell me a little bit about you and how you came to write those books and why you wrote them.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm right now, like you said, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a workshop facilitator, I do retreats, and I travel the nation. I'm doing that for different organizations and also for events that I put on myself. Mm-hmm. How did I get here? It's been a journey, just like the title of that first book says. I used to be an engineer. I actually have a Bachelor of Engineering and a Master's.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then more and more I started recognizing that my journey, what was happening behind the scenes as I was working and building my career, was I was in breakdown in my relationships. I had experienced domestic violence. I had experienced sexual assault. You name it, I had been through it. And more I was recognizing that it was my purpose to support women in healing and breaking through the things that cause us to forget how perfect we are and how lovable we are and how worthy of love we are.
You know, it's interesting because I know as we age, and most of my audience is 40 and over, one of the things that always gets addressed by coaches and everybody else that works with women over 40 is the idea of loving ourselves. And everybody says, oh, yeah, I do. Oh, yeah, I need to work on that. But, you know, why do you think it is so difficult for women to fall into that realm of really, truly loving themselves for who they are, as they are?
That's a great question. So we tend to buy into what I call less than messages, whether that be less than messages that we get from society and media, which, as we know, especially for 40 and up, and I'm in that club, that, you know, as we get older, that's beautiful. That's an example of less than messages, or things that we've experienced in the past that have made us feel broken. For example, trauma, deep-rooted trauma, childhood trauma, like I mentioned, sexual assault. All of that causes these experiences of less than versus the truth, which is we are not. We are always worthy of the life of our dreams and always worthy of love, but we tend to forget it. We get further and further away from that truth as life happens.
So what's your story? Why did you decide to write this book or write your series of books?
I share this story a lot, and I'll let you know kind of what culminates it all. I was home one evening working on a presentation for some VPs. This was when I was an engineer. And it was very important. And all of a sudden I hear a violent knocking on my door. And it was my on and off again boyfriend, and he was angry. And I was more concerned about what my neighbors would think than like my own safety. So I opened the door, he pushes me against the wall, pulls out a gun, points it in my face, and says, "No one will ever love you the way that I do." And where I was with my lack of self-esteem or virtually no self-love at that time, I was actually hoping that he was telling me the truth. Like, wow, hopefully he loves me so much that it would make him this angry. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's where I was then. Wow. And so the next day, I got him to calm down. The police did get called, but I didn't press charges, and I let him go. And the next day I rocked my presentation. I did amazing. And when he called me and said, "Hey, do you want to celebrate?" I said, yes. And it wasn't until 2 weeks later, when I was staring at the same barrel of that gun, that I recognized I had it. And interestingly enough, it wasn't the gun to my face that was the trigger for me to think that. It was that I had this thought in that moment that I didn't care whether I lived or died. Mm-hmm. And that was so far from my truth that I was like, no, I want to live. And finally I pressed charges and I released him and let him go out of my life for good. And that's when I went on the journey to figure out, well, something's missing here. And I knew that it was loving myself. And I teach that self-love is a process. So there was a process that I learned as I healed and got to this place.
And you talk about that in both your books. And for some, I think this is such an important topic, and one that I think it's talked about, but really not given actionable items and tools and things that people can do to start that journey of self-love. It's not simply saying, okay, now I love myself. It's really not that. There's a process in learning to love yourself, which is amazing. And I think one of the reasons why it does take a process and why you do need tools is because of all of the messaging that is counterproductive in terms of us thinking of ourselves in loving ways. Mm-hmm. We get feedback, whether knowingly or unknowingly, from our spouses, our children, our parents, our coworkers, our bosses, our neighbors, our community in general, society in general, about all the different reasons why there might be something wrong with us and why we're not good enough to love. So for people, for women who are struggling with this whole idea of self-love, what's the first step? What's the actionable item that they can do to begin to try to heal and to begin that process of learning to love themselves?
Yeah. So the first step is really just choosing to. And I always say that, we're ready when we're ready. It's almost like I call it the light bulb phenomenon. We can do the same mistake. I mean, I can't tell you how many men that I dated and they were the same person, but different faces and bodies, but the same experience, which was that I just did not feel whole. I did not feel good in my relationships. But it's the light bulb phenomenon. Like one day you're like, oh, I'm ready. So I think the first part is a choice. But then I always say that self-love is a process. It's a threefold process. It is to know who you are, then to love who you are, and express who you are. And they all go hand in hand, and they're all super important steps. But the first part in knowing, it takes you to separate yourself from life, right? From the people in your life, even if you have tons of obligations like most women do. But take time to yourself, really undistracted, and figure out, who am I? It's a hard question to answer. Who am I, given all that I've been through, all that I've learned? Who am I right here and right now? Because we lose sight, we get so far away from knowing that we are drifting. And so we're like, oh, you want me to be this way? Oh, you want me to do that? Oh, and then we figure out, like, wait, who am I? So figuring out who you are, getting to know who you are. And one of the critical pieces in that is understanding and becoming aware that you are worthy. And that's a key piece in knowing who you are. Once you can land, I am worthy of the life of my dreams, just like you would never tell a newborn baby, you're not worth the life of your dreams. Well, you wouldn't tell yourself that. So now really understanding that, then it becomes a matter of the details of who am I and how do I show up on this world, in this earth. Yeah.
It's interesting because for me, my epiphany came, or my light bulb experience came about 10 years ago. I was 51 and I was working in corporate America, very successful, had the equivalent of the American dream or American nightmare, depending on how you look at it, all the accoutrement of what's supposed to be success, right? But I knew in my skin that I wasn't happy, but I couldn't figure out why, because everybody kept telling me that I should be happy. I mean, look at your kids, look at your husband, look at your job, look at your house, and it's like, oh, but look at me. I'm a mess, inside. And the epiphany was that one day I woke up and I couldn't stop crying. And my audience knows this story, but bottom line was I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, took a year off from my job. I worked in the medical industry, so it was okay for me to take a sabbatical and they hold your job for a year. While I was gone, I really did that self-introspection. And one of the things that I landed on when it was time for me to go back, that I didn't want to go back, and that I wanted to find out what it was that I could do with all the other different skills that I had that I wasn't even using in the career that I had. And that's kind of how I got into the whole wellness thing. But my very first step in really trying to figure out who I was creating a space for myself, my prayer room, which is where we are right now, where I am right now. It's my prayer room office. One side's for this work, the other side's for my angels and all that kind of stuff. But I started putting things on my walls to kind of affirm who I am. I am strong, I am focused, I am wise, I am well. And it wasn't necessarily that I felt that way, but this is how I wanted to feel about myself. And I had some of those components. So, fast forward 10 years later, my wall is full of stuff. Is all this back here is telling me who I am, what I want to do, and what I've accomplished, and all that kind of stuff, because I'm a visual person. But it really helped to solidify how I thought about myself and to learn to how I was right then was really okay, and that I was enough. If I never started this business, if I never left my job, if I never did some of the things that I've done now since I've had this business, I was already enough. But it took me a while to get to that. And I had to remind myself every day that I am enough because of the messaging. So and I don't know why women have that problem, because we do so much. What's your opinion about that? Why is it that we always feel like we're not enough?
Well, but there's an onslaught of less than messages out there, in every magazine, every video, every image on TV. And I think we're making progress in our society with some of this. But we grow up with mothers who grew up with deep struggles around being enough and being worthy and being beautiful and feeling beautiful and believing that. And so it's just generational. It passes on. I think, I look at my children, my daughters, and I'm affirming them like crazy. They do affirmations every day. And so I pray that they are the breakthrough generation, and that we don't have that, and we just learned recently that a lot of women are stepping up in leadership and being voted in. And you know what?
Yes. At last count, 110 women.
Yeah.
I don't care what their political ideology is. I think that at some point, women in general, well, the day after the election, quite frankly, in 2016, decided, you know what? We have to speak up for ourselves, which makes sense because men aren't us and other people aren't us. We are the ones who could speak, on our behalf. Now, you mentioned the other two steps. What was the second step after that?
So the second step is, once you figured out who you are and you understand that deep worth, then you show up in your life loving yourself. So women are nurturers. So we're really great at loving on others. In fact, every time I do a retreat or a workshop, I say, okay, I know people struggle with loving yourself. So tell me how it looks when you love on your people, your children, your partner, your coworkers, anybody that you love on. And they'll start shouting out, I'm appreciative, I'm kind, I buy them gifts, I forgive them, we struggle with forgiving ourselves. And then at the end, I'll have a whole list of ways that love looks on a flip chart, and I'll say, now apply this to loving yourself. And everybody's like, oh, because we don't do that. We don't take the time out. We're so judgmental. We're our harshest critics. It takes 17 positive thoughts to negate one negative thought, and we're stuck there. And so now it's no matter what people think of you, no matter what you've been through in the past, no matter what your circumstances are, whether you have $1 in your bank or $1 million, choosing to love yourself. That's the second step.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I always tell people, because I'm in wellness and talk a lot about things we need to do to honor our mind, body, and spirit. And one of the things I always encourage women to do, for instance, when they go to the doctor, so often when we go to our doctor or whoever, your holistic practitioner, whatever, we go in there and if something's wrong, we just sit down or lie down and say, okay, fix it, figure it out. And the reality is that we need to start showing up in our lives. And that's just an example of not showing up. That's your body. It's your life. So therefore, you want to come equipped with questions. you want to have, use critical thinking skills. Just because it's coming from a doctor doesn't always mean that it's right. I mean, it's called a medical practice for a reason. They don't have all the answers. And we need to carry that kind of idea of showing up in our lives in everything that we do, instead of taking our own selves for granted, which is so true. So many times as women, we take ourselves for granted in terms of the fact that we need to be cared for, we need to be loved. And sometimes that has to come from us. And that's okay. That's okay. I find that a lot of women, as they get older, like especially around the 50, 60, if they don't have a significant other, are concerned about that. Well, who's going to be there for me, when I get older, or who's going to be there for me to love or whatever. And I understand the need for companionship and all that. But I also understand the importance of being there for yourself. I had to learn that. I was single for a short period of time before I got married my second time around. I have 4 girls, all teenagers, and it was a pretty interesting situation. And I had to learn the idea of being my own best friend and companion, because I couldn't always go out because I was a single mom. Didn't always have the money to go out and do things. So I had to learn how to enjoy my own company and feel comfortable in my skin. So I get that part about showing up. And what's the third step?
So the third step is where the rubber meets the road. This is to express yourself. And I'm struggling with the lighting here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, the sun.
Yeah, this is a goodie. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where now you know who you are. You love who you are. Now it's about having the courage and confidence to be who you are in all areas of your life. So when I talk about being yourself, everyone's like, yeah, I'm being myself. And then I go, in all areas of your life? So you're telling me that even though you're miserable on the job, but I make a lot of money there. Oh, but then you go home and you're happy. So you're spending about 50 hours out of your week miserable, not being yourself, not being worthy of your dreams, not living your dreams. And so sometimes it takes tough choices. With my experience, I did great in my career and my education, but my relationships were where my red flag was that I wasn't, living up to my worth. And so it took some tough choices to get out of those relationships, to heal what I've experienced as broken in me. With high paying jobs, people get caught up. You talked about that. You had a great paying job, all these ways success looks, but you were empty at a certain point. And so it'll take some tough choices to align yourself and truly express yourself. But I believe that this is the only way that, one, you can live your best life, and two, those around you have the true opportunity to love who you are. Because if you don't share who we are, if we don't share it with them and we're like, why don't they love me? You're not willing to show them who you are. And if you don't know how to, it's because you haven't figured out who you are.
That's interesting, because my children now, they're all in their 30s, with one who's 26. And they will remind me sometimes, Mom, we're adults. So you can just tell us what's really going on. Because I'm still trying to feel, okay, how do I tell them this? Trying to protect them or whatever. And that was one of my main things, was trying to control the outcome. And that's what caused a huge amount of anxiety for me, because I was trying to control teenagers, girls, my husband, the people who reported to me on the job, the folks at church, trying to control the outcome so there would never, ever be any surprises. I would know exactly what to expect, because I'm controlling everything, which is certifiably crazy. It's impossible. And no wonder I was anxious all the time, because how can you do that? Right. Until finally I had to let that go. And just part of letting go of controlling the outcome was being myself and admitting when I didn't have the answers, or when I had made a mistake, or when things were out of control for me. And one of the first things I had to learn how to do that was with my kids. That was really hard. I mean, the last little bit of letting go of that old me that was anxious was that piece, because I never wanted them to worry about anything. I never wanted them to see me sweat. Mom's got it all together. Mm-hmm. And then talking with them, much later, maybe about 5 or 6 years later, after I had started my business, and by that time they're in their 30s, and we're talking and stuff. And they're like, Mom, we knew about such and such. We don't know why you lied to us about that because we knew what was really going on. I said, really? They're like, yes. It's so funny. I'm thinking I'm, protecting them, hiding them, not letting them know, how untogether, how crazy things were in my head. But, once I had that talk with him and was able to release the idea of trying to control what other people might think, or, it was such a release. And it was such an awakening. And it really made my life joyful. In the Bible, there's a section, Paul in Ephesians, I believe it is, where he says he's learned to be content in his current circumstances. And I've always admired that verse. And I said, you know what, that's my goal. I want to learn how to be joyful, even when everything else is crazy. And I have learned how to do that because there's always going to be something going on. There's always going to be something changing around you. But one thing that you're not going to be losing is yourself. You can count on you and your relationship with whatever, your higher entity is, if you have one. But the idea of taking that thing about counting on others for validation and becoming your own validation, I feel is huge when it comes to loving yourself.
Yep.
Yes. So you wrote the first book. What made you decide to write the second book?
Yeah, because life still happens even after you love yourself.
Stuff still goes on. Yes.
Yeah. So the one thing I always guarantee people is life will still happen. So it's called Meantime Love, and it is a sequel. And the subtitle is So I've Got Self-Love, Now What? And it's really because how do we navigate life's twists and turns? And I call it, there's pain-inducing, trauma-filled, whatever. And it can be anything, even having a baby, which is great. It changes your life. Or I talk about in this book in particular, like when I was done having children and the kind of the mourning process that occurs after that. So major stuff. And how do you stay aligned with knowing, loving, and expressing yourself through it all?
Oh, wow. That sounds like a book that all of my listeners could benefit. Both of them could benefit from reading. Now, for people who want to purchase the book, and I think all of you should, because I did. And I don't endorse a lot of books, only the ones that I've read. And this is a good book and has some good tools. So where do they go to purchase them?
So they're both available on Amazon. If you pull up Anita Cross and Meantime Love, or however, you can find them pretty easily.
All right. And we've also provided a direct link for all of you to go ahead and purchase the book right there from the show page. And I understand you have a free gift. And where can I get the free gift, the listeners?
Yeah, so if you go to anitaross.net, I share a sneak peek chapter.
Okay.
So I've Got Self-Love, Now What?
Okay, fantastic. So go to anitaross.net and you can sign up for a pre-look at her wonderful book. And what's going on for you for 2019? What do you have planned?
One of my favorite projects that I have brewing, if you will, is I'm going to be bringing this work of self-love to incarcerated youth, females, women, and young girls. And it's just, to me, that's like, I don't know what better place I could bring this to. But that's one of my favorite things that I have going on.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. In your opinion, what's maybe one of the key benefits of being a seasoned woman?
Oh, that's a great question. The richness of the life lessons that we've learned. For me, it's always now, why is this happening for me? Back when I was not seasoned, it was, why is this happening to me?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Getting rid of that victim way of thinking. Absolutely. Anita, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience. This has been wonderful to have you on the wellness journey. And thank you to all of you who've taken the time to listen and to some of these experts in the field of mind, body, spirit wellness for women over 40. I love bringing you their stories, and I hope that it's been encouraging. And remember, you can join our group on Facebook, the Wellness Woman of 40 and Beyond group on Facebook, and also visit my website at wellnesswoman40.com. That's wellnesswoman40.com. Thanks so much for listening. And remember that along your journey, you're going to need those tips, tools, and techniques to get you through and to get you to the other side of all the wonderful things that life has for you. And you can do it. Absolutely. Be well. See you again next time. Join me next week as we dive into other ways on how to live in a way that is beneficial to your mind, body, and spirit. Till next time, keep that spice of life candle burning.
For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.